Bobby, why don't you take maybe 5 or 10 minutes and just talk about your experience coaching the run and triathlon. Did you start as a triathlon run coach, or did you start coaching pure runners, and how did you make the transition?
Oh, you're going to make me do the math, right? And you're going to realize that when I started coaching, triathlon wasn't a bona fide sport. All right. So I actually, this is my 31st year of coaching, but I only really started focusing intensely on triathlon in about 1986. And in 2002, I started working with USA Triathlon as a consultant coach, and I was focusing more on the high end of the sport. It was actually Bob Lindquist who brought me into triathlon, and after her attempt in 2000 to make the Olympic team to Sydney, where she had an unfortunate incident happen in the heat, and she didn't make that team, so she brought me on board shortly after that, and we worked to the 2004 Olympics. And I found that a lot of my work working with runners has been primarily on training and the advances in training, and they do sufficient volume that eventually their mechanics smooth out if they don't get injured. Whereas with the triathletes, it's so much easier to make an impact on their mechanics because they get impacted by so many outside influences, and running is not the sole influence in their training. So it's almost easier to make a large impact on a triathlete.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I also started doing triathlons myself in 85 or 86, I think.
Great. So I always like to make sure that when we're talking with elites or professionals or even age group podium finishers, that there's some sort of tie into the ordinary age grouper. What can you suggest to people watching that would like to improve their run form, but they didn't run in college, they didn't get recruited by USAT Triathlon because they're so outstanding? People that just sort of feel like they're ordinary runners, or maybe running is, Kevin mentioned, painful, or maybe it's not fun. What kinds of things do you do for those people, especially in the sport of triathlon?
Well, there's so much carryover from the pros because, let's say your average age group is a Honda Accord. They don't have the motivation or the time to push themselves so hard, so they don't break as often. Whereas, athletes like Gwen, and Kevin, they NASCARs or Formula Ones, and they push themselves very hard and they break a lot. And so if you compare the pros, I always get this when I was working with marathon runners and they're running 5-minute pace, or they're running 4:50 pace. People say, I can't believe they're running that fast. It doesn't look that hard. It doesn't look that fast when you watch them running, and then you try and run 5-minute pace yourself, and bits and pieces fly off. So what they can learn is how slowly the pros progress, and then not expecting to change their entire game within the course of one season. And then the other thing is to be more compact. You always see the age groupers have different angles introduced. They have different planes of movement. Whereas if you watch Kevin run or you watch Gwen run, whether you're videotaping them from the front at 210 frames per second or from the side, there's not a lot of extraneous movement. It's all forward and all back. And I think that people can generally learn from that, noticing how compact these individuals are, even when they're running so fast.